Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go.
I'm going to tell you all about how my wife went from the considerate woman I knew to someone who would go behind my back for short-lived pleasure. I hate that this happened to me, but all things considered, I'm grateful it didn't turn out worse. We were both 27 and married for 4 years when things started to change. We decided to start trying to conceive a child, and she simultaneously decided to start a discreet relationship with our neighbor. Whenever we were leaving or coming to our apartment, we had to walk past his front door. We saw him in passing many times, but my wife never let her eyes stay on him too long. He was tall with dreadlocks and I guess handsome, but I don't really want to say that. She went out to the car for something one night, and the next day, she started checking her phone a lot. I think she left a note on his car with her phone number. Besides checking her phone a lot, she was really jumpy and defensive. I mentioned that we were invited to a July 4th barbecue that some of the neighbors were hosting. She stopped what she was doing and said she assumed I wouldn't want to go. I knew she was doing this because she wanted to go, hopefully without me there. I told her I would go with her if she wanted, and she said she didn't want to be the only reason I was going. You know the stupid, tricky way that women reel men into arguing. I put my hands up and said, "If you want to go, tell me when we're leaving," and walked away. At the July 4th barbecue, the neighbor man will call. Noper was there. I'm quite sure she was texting him at this point and told him she'd be there. He did a really good job of playing dumb. Like, he picked the chair next to my wife at random. It was like they both underestimated how observant I was. I already decided at this point that our relationship was in trouble, and if I couldn't reach her before she cheated on me, all hope was lost. We all chatted outside over the music coming from someone's Bluetooth speaker. My wife paid me no attention beyond the occasional glance to make sure I was still there. She was busy gabbing her mouth about pointless stuff, mostly directing her attention to Noper, but including other neighbors, so I wouldn't catch on. I tried telling her I was ready to leave, but since she didn't want to stop talking, she suggested I head back to the apartment without her. I tried staying longer, but I had to go back. I was tired. I finally gave in and went back inside. By the time I got to the window to look outside, Noper and my wife were gone. I went to his apartment and knocked on the door. He took almost a full minute to answer, and that bothered me. When he opened the door, my wife was obviously not in sight. He was dressed, but it wasn't the same outfit he had on 15 minutes ago. I knew it was a long shot because I had no proof, but I asked him if my wife was with him. He tried to look confused and said no. I asked if he was sure because she texted me that she was going to hang out with him for a while. This was a lie, but with a very perplexed expression on his face. He looked towards his bedroom. For a split second, I knew she was in there. He told me again, but slower, that she was not in his apartment. I stared at him real hard for a few moments, then walked away without another word. Before my wife even returned to our apartment, I ordered a hidden security camera to install outside our front door. When she returned, she looked flushed and avoided eye contact with me. I tried asking where she was, and just like before, she got defensive and told me I was crazy. She said she walked around outside while she ate another serving of food. Then she got caught up with the neighborhood gossip spreader. I knew she was lying. I didn't believe her at all. But it wasn't because I had proof. It was because I knew my wife's personality and that she was acting guilty. Before the obsession with her phone and constantly defensive demeanor, she would always communicate with me. Even if it was just her crazy and pointless thoughts, she would share them with me. If something was upsetting her, she would tell me. It was unlikely that she suddenly stopped having thoughts or complaints worth sharing with her husband. It was much more likely that she didn't feel like including me for one reason or another, and maybe that was because she had a fling going on. I called her brother to ask what I should do. He didn't think his sister would be capable of something like this because all she ever wanted was a happy marriage without betrayal. After I told him more of the signs I noticed, he suggested I wait until the security camera catches something before making any decisions. I agreed. After this conversation, I waited weeks for my wife to make up a reason to leave the apartment. Both of us worked from home and we usually went places together. She never did leave the apartment without me. I finally decided to check what the security camera caught. It was showing Noper's front door and our own. Eventually, I saw at 3 a.m. my wife leaving the apartment. I could not believe my eyes. She was moving very slowly, being careful not to make a single sound. She tiptoed down to Noper's door and knocked. He answered within 10 seconds and let her in. I was furious. I sent the clip to her brother and he replied with absolute shock. My wife never knew about the camera, and it was so small that she didn't see it. She didn't stop. At one visit, the camera caught 3 times in 2.5 weeks. I told her brother about the additional clips, asking him what I should do. I was at a loss. Their parents had since passed, and I wasn't sure how I could get her to move out of the apartment without putting up a fight. He offered to come over while I dumped her, and I accepted. He showed up and she was confused. I told her I had proof of her sneaking to Nobra's apartment and I would no longer consider myself married to her. Her jaw dropped. She started trembling and swore she would never do that. She was already less defensive than normal because her brother was there. I asked her if she wanted to see the video evidence and she said yes. After watching it, she was silent. She had a very angry expression, but the only person she could have been mad at was herself. We tried talking to her more, but she was only silently fuming. Eventually, she stormed into the bedroom and packed a bag. I thought she was preparing to move out, but she only grabbed enough for a few days. She walked straight past us, out the door and into Noper's apartment without knocking. Her brother and I stared at each other in disbelief. He helped me move all her stuff into the hallway of our apartment complex. I was actually pretty amused picturing her attempting to bring all this stuff into Nobra's apartment like it wasn't a big deal. Over the course of a week, she managed to get half of her stuff into his apartment before he told her he changed his mind and didn't want her to stay with him anymore. This is when reality really sunk in. She called her brother and asked him if she could move in. He said no. Besides the fact that he disapproved of her behavior, he wasn't permitted to let anyone move in. Then she called me. She didn't know I had enough time to update the landlord that she'd moved out. She begged me to forgive her. She said this was the worst mistake she ever made and she would do anything to make it better. I told her I would never be able to look at her the same way. I told her I'd always worry she was sneaking over to the neighbor's house or searching for someone to cheat with online. She cried and said more, but I had to hang up. 1 month later, she was still homeless. Most of the stuff I put in the hallway was already in the garbage. She would sleep outside on the bus or at strangers' houses. She managed to work a little bit, but not enough to afford a place to live or frequent hotel rooms. I felt bad, but she brought it all on herself. To help myself cope, I completely redecorated my apartment and had lots of friends over. Nobra left a note on my door apologizing. He contributed to the disaster, but it was mostly my ex's choices. 1 year later, we were officially divorced, and I got the opportunity to move to Hawaii. I worked from my home or the beach and started dating a really lovely woman. My ex did manage to find a place to live with a man she met on the bus. Her brother updates me, and according to him, she is not happy. She's learned that beggars can't be choosers, and now she only focuses on survival. Now, let's get into today's second story. I was married to my wife for 8 years when all this went down. I was 42 and she was 37. We had 3 black and white dachshunds. They were pretty much like our children. One day when I arrived home from work, none of the dogs came to the door to greet me. That was very odd. Another thing that was very odd, my wife didn't come out to greet me either. I opened the room to our study, and all 3 dogs came charging out. Why were they in our study with the door closed? Then the dogs gathered by our bedroom door, barking. The hair on my head was standing up. At this point, I knew something was off. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. I thought I heard whispering and scuffling. I popped the lock with a toothpick from the kitchen and the dogs rushed in, sniffing around. My wife was sitting on her bed in her underwear with her laptop but was just starting to turn on. She looked at me like was a ghost. The dogs then started growling at our closet door. I opened the door and found a man standing there in nothing but sweatpants and looking terrified. I wanted to put my hands on him so badly, but I only screamed in his face, asking what he was doing with my wife. He bolted out of our house faster than lightning. He didn't even grab his shirt. I turned to my wife, the woman I spent over 9 years of my life with. She changed everything in one day. She started to frantically apologize and explain. She went to the dog park months ago while I was at work. She met another man there that had a dog. Big shocker. He flirted with her and talked for at least an hour. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring because it made her skin irritated. Sometimes when he asked if she was single, she said yes. I could not believe what I was hearing. He asked her out and she said yes. They went on a few lunch dates while I was at work, which eventually gave my wife the courage to bring him here for intimate. I spat in her face. It was the least she deserved after what she just told me. I asked her why she didn't go to his house. And get this, she said he lives with his mom temporarily. What a winner. I told her to get out immediate, and she just cried. She pleaded with me to reconsider divorce. She said separation is fine because I needed time to heal. But she needed me in her life and we could recover from this. I told her that she wouldn't be the judge of what I needed to do because she was no longer my partner as of this day. She let out a wail and started packing up her stuff. She was moving way too slow, so I started throwing her stuff out the window. She did not like that at all and picked up the pace. After she had her stuff together, she asked me where she was supposed to go. I laughed. Why didn't she think of this before cheating on me? I got her a taxi and told him to take her to the homeless shelter downtown. She was in disbelief. I don't know why. Maybe she didn't think I had the strength to resist Carrie about her after her breach of trust and infidelity. She didn't have any money or family, so this was it. She had to realize how shit out of luck she really was. All because I came home from work 1 hour early during the time she was gone. I felt really bad. I'm sure she felt worse, but it was different being in the house with the dogs. They looked at me like they wanted their mom. How excruciating. But you know, the funny thing about life is that it's always changing. All living things change too, and adjust to change, whether they're prepared or not. My dogs and I started to accept the new norm after just a few days. During that time, my ex begged me to come get her, but I eventually blocked her number. I needed this time apart to decide what the best course of action was. I filed for divorce. After a few weeks of separation, I couldn't let her back into what was now my house. She'd let in another man, and it would never be the same to have her. During those 2 weeks, my ex told me she was staying with an old friend from high school who wanted to help her out. I then sent the divorce papers to that address, and since she was history, I was the owner of the house and dogs. There was no disputing it. So as devastating as it was to my wife, she brought it all on herself in exchange for a short fling with a dog owner that lived at his mom's house. I don't actually know where my ex is anymore. I can't believe it, considering how many years we spent together. But she doesn't have the same phone number. The irony about this whole story was that several months later, I went for a walk in the dog park and met a woman. She had one chocolate dachshund. She was the most beautiful woman I ever saw, even though I don't put any value on that. After talking to her for a good while, I felt myself falling for her intelligent and kind personality. I asked her on a dinner date and she accepted. One more thing I have to add. If I would have been the one walking in the dog park as a married man, I would have tried to bring my wife with me. If for some reason she couldn't come, you bet I would have kept my eyes from wandering before she cheated on me. I honored and respected my wife no matter where she was. I wanted her to be my life partner and she was. No stranger in the park would have gotten to know me well enough. There's too many people in the world, but that doesn't mean I'll get a new one when I'm bored. Life is too short to break the hearts of the people who trust you the most.